Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. There's a story from the scriptures, the canon, that I was thinking about earlier today, and with the help of Luang Por, found it in the Majjhima Nikaya and was reading it. And it's a little vignette about a monk named Venerable Puna, who, disciple of the Buddha, of course, and he has decided to go off from the Ganges Valley, where he has been practicing, and I was reading the footnotes, so it was actually returning to his home country from where he was, somewhere on the west coast of India, so to the west, to practice. And he had been talking with the Buddha about some aspects of Dhamma, contemplation of the six sense bases, I think. And anyway, the Buddha asked him, well, where are you going off to practice? And he told him he was going to this area in the west. And the Buddha's comment, or the Buddha's remark was, oh, the people that live there are pretty rough and fierce. Do you think that you'll be able to hold up okay? What if they verbally assault you? What if they attack you and insult and revile you with harsh words? And Puna's response to the Buddha was, well, I will think of them as very kind and very excellent people, in that even with their verbal insults and reviling me, they won't be giving. They didn't give me blows with their fists. And the Buddha says, well, what if they give you blows with their fists? And Venerable Puna replies, well, I'll think of them as excellent and kind because they didn't give me blows with clods. The Buddha says, well, what if they give you blows with clods? And he replies, well, I'll think of them as excellent and kind because they didn't give me blows with sticks. And the Buddha says, well, what if they give you blows with sticks? Puna replies, well, I think of them excellent and kind people because they didn't strike me with a knife or a dagger. And the Buddha says, well, what if they strike you with a knife or a dagger? He says, well, think of them as kind and excellent because they didn't kill me with the knife or the dagger. And the Buddha says, well, what if they kill you with the knife or the dagger? And Puna replies, well, I'll think of them as kind and excellent because I'm remembering that there have been monks and nuns who when contemplating the Asubha practice, doing the Asubha practice, contemplating the unattractiveness of the body and the unpleasantness of having a body, they had to go out and ask for assassins to take their lives, to end their lives. And I'll think of these people as kind and excellent for saving me the trouble of having to do that if they kill me with the knife. That, to me, the simile kind of falls apart a little bit there, but I'm not so sure that that's a great thing to happen in any circumstance, but you get the point anyway. And the Buddha says, okay, you can go, you're ready. You're ready to go and practice with that in that environment. So I was thinking of that because sometimes we've been talking about going to do a visit in Thailand, and my experience of practice and life in Thailand is one of, there's a lot of history, a lot of reverence for the Sangha there, and the movement of monastic life to the West is kind of like sometimes that rough and ready aspect of being here in the West, where people aren't quite so reverent to us. And thinking also of the past week of experiences where Ajahn Pasano and a few other members of our community went to our own West Country on the other side of Tom Kai Road, just to the west of us here, and experienced some of those, at least at the first level, of some pretty intense interactions with some people. And it didn't get beyond the first stage, but had a pretty strong impact. And hearing the accounts of it, was impressed with the power of not responding in kind. I think everybody who was there pretty much agreed that the measure of non-reactivity from the community that was there, whereas it didn't result in a complete acquiescence or pleasant interaction, at least allowed the energy to die down and the person to leave the site of the activity without escalating as it would probably in most normal situations. So the power of the practice, the power of developing a sense of forbearance, patience, equanimity in the face of this kind of intense difficulty. And it kind of has moved me to reflect a bit on the power of equanimity and the development of that as a very strong spiritual quality. One of the foremost, I think, in terms of spiritual qualities, equanimity comes up in a variety of ways in the teachings, and the Buddha's encouragement for us to develop it in different ways. There's different manifestations of equanimity, different ways that it's developed in the teachings, and primarily a couple of different kinds. One that's called equanimity based on unity or unification, which is the kind of equanimity that comes from deep concentration practice, development of states of absorption, and with even fading away of some of the very intense pleasurable experiences of body and mind that come from practice, samatha practice, concentration practice. As those fade away and equanimity settles in, the mind becomes very unified with this quality of equanimity based on the development of concentration, unity. Also, there's the equanimity that is associated with what's called diversity, equanimity in the daily experiences of the world, the pleasures and the pains that come into our world just by being a human being in the conditioned realm, in samsara, all the ways that happinesses and sufferings come into our life because it's the natural occurrence of the world we live in. And responding, developing a response to the ups and downs of the world that is based in equanimity, of being able to ride the waves of the world around us. So that's the equanimity based in diversity. And that's a very powerful one. Of course, both of them, both aspects of equanimity are very important and crucial in the path. But it's the equanimity and diversity that was coming to mind, thinking about the experiences of this week and other things. You know, life here in the monastery isn't always according to a stereotype that a lot of people might have of just being peaceful and wonderful and calm and equanimous all the time. We have to interact with the world as it appears to us, as it comes to us. It's not one of isolation from the world around us. So it's that development of the strength of mind that can resist always having to follow our impulses towards experiencing only pleasantness and resist the temptation to move into avoidance of the difficult situations, and allows us to receive everything that the world has to present to us with clarity and acceptance and this sense of ease and balance, no matter how enticing it is, no matter how difficult it is. Because that we realize that acceptance of reality as the way it is the source of a very deep sense of peace. We can develop our meditation practice, and we should develop our meditation practice to develop deep states of concentration, quiet, peace of mind through picking up meditation objects that lead in that direction, the breathing, and other ones that lead to that equanimity of unification, of unity. But the real insight and real deep, long-lasting peace comes from that equanimity, stems from that equanimity that isn't stirred by the craving craving for all the sense pleasures of the world, or the forms that craving takes, or the aversion to the difficult things. It's that balance of mind that can see things clearly, that can see things with wisdom, so that we understand the nature of the world and its ups and downs, and don't get lost in that constant back and forth response of attraction, aversion, approach, avoidance. This is the kind of equanimity that leads to a real deep sense of peace in letting go of those ways of reacting in the world. So in addition to the meditation practice to help develop the stillness and peace of mind that leads to that one kind of equanimity, there's also more active ways of reflecting, different themes to reflect on, using our thinking mind, reflective mind, to help develop that equanimity, based in the world, in the way that we experience the world. One of the ones that came to mind recently was this reflection that we often do, usually in the morning, reflections after the period of meditation, the very common one that we do of the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And pretty much everybody remembers those. The first 3 recollections of I am of the nature to age, I've not gone beyond aging. I have the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. So those recollections, those reflections on old age, sickness, and death are recollections that help lead us away from confusion and fear and into a sense of, well, this is the way things are. This is reality. These are the things that oftentimes we try to not look at because they have a certain sense of foreboding to them if we try to face them. But when we really reflect on them in a clear and honest way, we do move towards that sense of equanimity in the face of difficulty. No one can really say that the processes of aging, sickness, and death are pleasant things to experience. We want to try and avoid looking at those things and pretend that it's all going to be, everything is just going to be fine and dandy, and that we'll, just pass our years and just maybe look a little bit older, but still be these young, vital people, always experiencing the pleasures of life. But reality hits us sometimes. A lot of us have experienced loss of parents recently. Just most recently, our friend Shakir has come here having just experienced the loss of his mother after a fairly quick illness. As most of you know, my mother passed away in January. Beth's mother passed away fairly soon after that. Ajahn Chaganando's father passed away around the same time. So, and then many other people as well in our lives. It seems like this is the year for that to be happening. And it gives us pause, makes us have to look at this aspect of being a human being. And, naturally, there's going to be grief in seeing other people and ourselves getting older, or falling ill, or passing away, because for the most part we haven't completely accepted that. So there will be a bit of grief when that happens. But the more we reflect on it, the more we realize this is part of being a human being. This is nature. And the more we can bring that into our consciousness, the more we can realize and accept these inevitable conditions with equanimity. Equanimity builds on kindness, the development of kindness and compassion, but it brings with it a sense of wisdom from reflection on the nature of the world, the nature of our lives, the fact that it isn't all wonderful all the time. We certainly have a lot of good things happening in our lives, and we have things that are unpleasant and difficult. and we strive to learn how to receive them all with balance. And when that happens, it's a word that's come up a lot in my thinking, my feeling, as I look at my own feelings in the past number of months, and thinking about all the other people who are experiencing loss. Not so much when the recollection and realization of the inevitability and the naturalness of these occurrences comes up for me, then any kind of sense of sadness turns more to the quality of poignancy. So there's a sense that, this is the way it is. This is the condition of being in the world. And it's not easy, it's not pleasant, but it doesn't have a personal sting to it. We realize that it's not a personal thing, it's a universal experience. Everyone experiences it because it has to be this way. And so the sadness or grief kind of morphs into the sense of poignancy. This is the human condition. This is the way it is in this realm, for better and for worse. And so there's definitely a felt sense of that, but there isn't the stickiness or the resistance that comes along with intense grief or wishing things to be different than the way they are, the reality of the way they are. And this is a very bearable kind of emotion. One of the other teachings that comes to mind is one that sometimes sounds a bit stark or super direct from the Buddha. And I've always appreciated that sometimes he could be quite direct and to the point. That's another one that points towards equanimity again. And it's actually described as 10 ways of subduing anger, but in addition to as a reflection for subduing anger, I think it can be extrapolated to other states of mind, other occurrences, other experiences that we have. And let's see if I can remember, it goes something like, these are reflections. So with the reflection, it starts with he has harmed me. What should I expect? He is harming me, but what should I expect? He will harm me in the future. What should I expect? He is harming someone who is dear and close to me. What should I expect? Or he has harmed someone who is dear and close to me. What should I expect? And then he is harming someone dear and close to me. What should I expect? He will harm someone close and dear to me. What should I expect? He has harmed someone who is not dear and close to me. So what should I expect? He is harming someone who is not dear or close to me. What should I expect? He will be harming someone close who is not close and dear to me. What should I expect? And then the 10th one is, one doesn't get worked up over impossibilities. And it's, you can say, well, that's pretty cool. But I've always appreciated that directness, that sense of, this is the world. we have to realize that the world of kamma is acting in accordance with its nature, with the laws of the world, the law of kamma. And that's the last reflection of the five subjects for frequent recollection. I skipped the fourth one. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. It falls along with those first three. But the last one of the five recollections is this reflection on kamma. I am the owner of my kamma. I'm born of my kamma, related to my kamma, abide supported by my kamma. Whatever kamma I shall do, of that I will be the heir. And that basic recollection and understanding deeply of the law of kamma is one of the bases for developing equanimity. Because we realize that the world as we experience it is based on a number of laws, the law of kamma being a very primary one, so that we realize that how we experience the world is based on the causes that we have put in, and then are experiencing results. Of course, some of what we experience in the world are through natural conditions. You know, we age, we get old, we get sick, and we die because we were born. Just the natural process of having birth. But some of the more difficult things, as hard as they are to explain, sometimes the recollection of kamma is very useful, not as a way of casting blame in a way, or just tossing a cold shoulder to the difficulties of the world, or causing guilt in ourselves, but to realize that we are the owners of our karma, of our kamma. And that whereas we can't always understand the workings of kamma, it's impossible to know how all the causes and conditions that have been created in the past result in present moment experience. It's just way too complex to know. But sometimes, particularly in difficult situations, if we're just at a loss as to how something could be this way, that just reflecting, well, sometimes it's just impossible to know. Maybe there's some kammic tendency or kammic flow that's resulting in, that's having its fruition right now, that's resulting in this particular situation. And I may not ever be able to know the reasons, but I don't have to rail against it. I can accept that which I don't have any control over as the results of past action. And rather than being a guilt trip, it can be something that gives one a sense of acceptance, if used correctly as a reflection. Doesn't mean we don't try to respond with compassion and kindness when difficult things are happening to others, to the world, to ourselves. But we also have this sense of wisdom of, yeah, causes and conditions are at work here. We don't often have a lot of choice, a lot of control in many of these situations. But with this reflection on kamma, we do realize that we have the choice in how we receive it and how we respond to these situations, so that we can set in motion a more skillful way of reacting and creating kamma that results in positive experiences in the future, or at least the reduction of the negative ones, like the response to anger and violence. By using equanimity, we don't reinforce those things and stop them in their path. So the reflection on kamma, very powerful tool for developing that sense of equanimity. So, one of the other things I've been sort of talking about this week at tea time, come up in discussions, it's kind of related, is this sense of a commitment to truth, in that if we have a commitment to seeing the reality of the world, a commitment to seeing things the way they are rather than the way we want them to be, we've committed ourselves to not just seeking always the good or the blissful or the sublime or the happy, contented states of mind, but seeing the truth of the way things are. And it's that commitment to truth that gives us the very deep-seated sense of contentment and peace that's not going to be subject to the ups and downs of the way the world usually works. So that asking ourselves, when we're faced with these difficult situations and we want to pretend that they're not there or that they shouldn't be there, we can ask ourselves, well, what's the truth here? The truth is, this is the way it is. And the truth is, yeah, maybe I don't want it to be this way. That's the truth too. But here it is. And that leads to that sense of acceptance and balance and ease of mind. So there's a lot of peace in that commitment to seeing the truth no matter what it is, and a lot of relief that we don't have to pretend that it should be or that it is otherwise. Looking honestly at the way it is. And that sense of equanimity extends not only to the world around us and the external circumstances that come our way for whatever reason, right or wrong, but also to the internal states that we experience, because we all experience these difficult states internally as well. It's not just out from the outside, but we all experience the difficulties, the unpleasantness of craving, of aversion, of anger, these emotional states that most of us have to some degree or another, of confusion, anxiety, fear, doubt, all of these internal states that we struggle with and that we've committed to see within ourselves by undertaking this practice. And the more we can develop an acceptance of those states too, through the reflection on the fact that these are due to causes and conditions, and to really reflect that they're not who we are. They're very real experiences, and they're very real conditions, and the result of where we've put our attention and how we've developed our responses over many lifetimes. But they are just that. They're just causes and conditions and results. And we don't have to own them personally. We have to work with them. We have to meet them. We have to accept them with kindness and compassion and equanimity. But we don't have to take them on with a sense of ownership And we can have that same attitude or that same feeling of poignancy to our own internal states. Wow, this is what it's really like being a human being. I have this craving, I have this intense desire, this greed, this wanting. I have this irritability, this aversion. This is part of my experience. This is the difficult, parts of being a human being. These anxieties, these fears, these different ups and downs in the mood. This is something I can look at and develop a sense of poignancy and equanimity. This is the result of the past causes and conditions. This is what it's like being human. And we can also use our attention, our ability to attend, to see that while we're doing this, we're actually developing some very strong, positive states of mind. Just the ability to look at these things squarely and realize that takes a huge amount of commitment to truth, commitment to kindness, to gentleness, in seeing all of these things in our lives and in the world around us, compassion and patience and will and wisdom as well. So as we're experiencing these things, we can also see that just by nature of our willingness to be there and develop the qualities to meet them, these are all incredibly strong, powerful, beautiful states of mind that we also have the ability to bring into our lives. And this is the ballast. These are the tools that we develop in the path, the spiritual path. And all of these combine together with the equanimity to produce that clarity and understanding that leads to deep insight and to deep sense of peace, whether it's working with the world around us and the difficult things that come into our lives externally, or whether it's the internal domain. We have these set of strengths and these tools just by being committed to the truth and seeing that develop within our own hearts. So this is the refuge. We have the teachings of the Buddha. He explained these all incredibly clearly to us in many different ways, different aspects of the teaching. As a place of refuge, the teachings themselves, the Dhamma, and just as importantly, the presence of people who are walking the path, the Sangha. This is where we can turn to. This is our refuge for our commitment to seeking and understanding and realizing the truth. So I think I'll just leave that there for this evening reflection.